Hey everybody,
What's going
welcome back.
on, bird nerds?
I'm Jay,
I'm Chris, the bird nerd.
and
We
we
are
are the
the bird
Bird
brains.
Brains. That one wasn't as good. We're regressing.
No,
It's getting,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
late. It's late today.
I was gonna say we're off our mark in this late evening, but that's all right.
Yeah. All right. Well, today we're going to talk about what to do with baby birds. So, if we'll start with this, don't breed birds. Um,
Yeah, if you don't have
uh,
a plan in place and you don't have extra room, yeah, don't breed them. Get the same gender. Get a two males or two females, depending on your species, and enjoy them together. They'll be just as happy together as they would a male and female pair. Yeah, don't breed them just because you can, breed with a purpose or intent in mind and have a plan in place for sure.
right. And yeah, Chris, you're exactly right. I mean, they don't need to breed to be happy. That is one form of enrichment you can provide, but just two birds, like you said, I mean, two male zebra finches, they'll have a blast, right?
Yep.
So don't think when we talk about bird breeding so much, Chris and I, like we live, breathe, eat, sleep birds. It's all we ever think about. It's all we ever talk about. We're bird brains, right? I mean, it's in the name.
Yeah. Much
So
to my
don't
wife's dismay, but yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and mine, and really everyone that knows me, frankly. Um, but yeah, just because we're doing it doesn't mean you need to do it. You can definitely
Yeah,
enjoy birds without breeding. I have at times in my life not been in a position to breed birds, so I just had birds and I didn't breed them. That's okay
yep,
too. And if you have hens, if you have female birds, you're going to get an occasional egg. It
right.
is. I get asked this all the time. What do I do? My bird laid an egg. Throw that egg in the trash. It's
Yep,
not going
pull
to
it
hurt the
out.
bird. Yeah, just throw I always tell people if you really want, you can make a tiny omelet, but otherwise, just throw them away. It doesn't hurt the bird.
Yeah,
If you're really worried about like breaking your bird's heart, you can on Amazon online, 100 places you can get fake finch eggs.
fake eggs. There you go.
If you really feel like it, you can swap them out for fake eggs, and you can watch your bird sit on an egg for a month and wonder why nothing happened. But
And you have to understand, animals in general. Typically, a lot of their sole purpose is to procreate, right? And so you get certain species of birds that are readily easy birds to breed and they want to breed a lot. Your society finches, your zebra finches, even your canaries. I mean, if you get females and even if you don't have a male present, they're gonna go through their natural cycles and they're probably gonna lay eggs, but that doesn't mean that you have to breed them for them to be happy. They can be paired up with two females and both females are laying eggs and they're just as happy, right? So we want to teach responsible breeding and don't just breed because you can or because the bird wants to, right? We want to make sure that we're doing it right and for the right purposes.
right, and if you don't know what you're doing, you want to start breeding. That's great. That's what we're here to help with.
Yeah,
Do a lot of research. Don't just rely on us. I mean, I can help you with whatever you need, but so can Chris. But find a mentor, get a big plan in place. Like the breeding is like kind of the end of the race. It's not the beginning of it. Figure out how to do it.
right.
Figure out how to just keep birds healthy, all those things. Then you can get into breeding. So that's our first big speech. I always call this like the dad advice speech. It's like I don't necessarily want to hear that. I want to go do what I want to do right now,
Yeah,
but be responsible about what you're doing. You're almost when you're breeding birds, you're almost playing God to an extent. You're making pairs, you're doing things, so don't take that lightly. Just because the birds can't talk to you and they're just little tiny squeaky birds doesn't mean that there's not a responsibility there on your part.
for sure.
Um,
100%.
so if you do choose to breed, hopefully it goes well, and then now you have baby birds. So kind of the whole topic of this is what do you do once you have baby birds? So you have basically two choices. You can keep them or you can offload them, to someone else in some manner. If you keep them, you should you basically you need to have a second cage. There's some species where it's not an issue, but the majority of species, especially males, when they have male offspring, at a certain point, and all wild animals, almost all wild animals do this, by the way. At a certain point, they will kick the males out, and there's a lot of reasons for that. It's an evolutionary trait to protect against inbreeding. It's a territorial thing. If you're a male lion, this is my pride. Hey, you got to get out of here. I mean, so like I've seen zebra finches really start to go after their male offspring pretty early on.
Yeah.
So I'd say, you have a baby bird, it's born within 3 months, it's out of the nest, fledged and weaned. At that point, time to consider moving them somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah, and lots of times, that stems that aggression. They'll pluck the babies, they chase them like crazy. But then, the opposite end, just what you alluded to, Jay, a lot of the female babies that stay there, the males will interbreed with them, or the offspring will try
Mm-hmm.
to inbreed, the juvenile males will try to breed with the female or the mom, right? And so you want to try to
Mm-hmm.
prevent that from happening as well. And so, yeah, having a plan in place, have an extra cage available, right? Or a breeder set up down the line, or if you don't have any breeders near you locally, if you have a local pet store, things like that, have a plan in place, to be able to offload those finches if you don't plan on keeping them, and if you do, make sure you have a separate cage available that you can put those young in.
Yeah.
And then same thing, if you're going to keep the young, when they get older, they're going to want to breed too. So you got to have another plan in place of, do you keep the siblings together, or do you separate them to again prevent inbreeding? So
Right. And that advice about having that should just be any bird keeper. You should have a second cage always because you'll end up needing it and it won't be at like Saturday at 9 a.m. when you can, I'll just pop to the pet store and get one right now. It'll be like
yeah.
Tuesday right before you leave for work or like Friday
Yeah.
night right before you go out on your hot date. You'll be like,
Yep.
you'll see some problem and you'll have to separate birds. So have that
Why
cage
why is
ready
that?
ahead of
That
time.
you just hit that right on the nail. It's
Yeah,
always
Murphy's
the
Law.
most
Yeah,
inconvenient time that I've got
yeah.
some baby I've got to rescue or feed or something, and it's usually with my wife, and she's patiently waiting for me to
Right.
hurry and
The
do
kids are
birds
already in the
first.
car, in their car
Yeah.
seats with the car running, and you're running around the aviary catching a bird. Right. Yeah.
Yep.
Been
Yep.
there a lot of times. So, all right. So you've planned ahead. You've got your cage ready. You've got your breeding plan. You successfully breed. So where do the babies go? So you have a lot of options here. Um, ideally, again, and there's a theme here, you've got this lined up ahead of time. Um, and the nice thing about breeding birds is you do get not as much warning as you might get with some other animals, but you do get a fair amount of pretty obvious warning. You'll notice, eggs in a nest with a hen on them. It's like, okay, baby birds are going to come in a few weeks. So um, we'll start off with what I do. So I have a couple different things I do. So one thing I do, I have actually two bird stores, one to the east, one to the west. I sell birds to those stores. Okay, so that's a good way to do it. Now you can run into some legality issues there. Make sure you're covered there. Every state's different. I've got some licenses and some things like that to do that. So that's one good way. And I should also say this is a good time to mention I am not making a profit on birds. Neither is Chris. If you're
No.
thinking, I had
Oh
somebody
man.
just this month say, I'm on a fixed income. I need extra cash. I'm going to breed birds. No, 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 no. You will not make money. Do not try.
Never. You
I've
never
been
will.
breeding birds for 20 years. You will never
You,
make money.
yeah. Yeah, no, it's not.
So you might sell those birds, but it will never be for, especially if you're selling to a pet store, you're gonna have to sell to wholesale, which is, one third to half of what they'll go for to an end purchaser. Even if you sell or trade them to somebody else in the hobby, you're never gonna get as much as you want. So don't do it for that. Um, I
And
basically
maybe that's a topic for later, Jay.
is the economy of
It,
birds.
it the economy of birds, and I've been able to get it to a point where it's paying for the hobby, but I am in no way pocketing money and taking my wife out
Yeah,
on a
and I'm
hot
not,
date
I
on
mean,
the bird's expense. So
yeah, and I'm not. I don't think I'm even doing that. I mean, I'm sponsored, right? So I'm getting some free food and supplies, and even then, like, I mean, maybe if you say like just the cost of buying birds, maybe I'm breaking even. But when you factor in seed and supplies and egg
Yep.
food and the cost
Yeah.
of building the. I mean, I don't know what my aviary cost to build because I didn't build it all at once, but I mean thousands of dollars.
Yep.
So there's no, and my wife's literally an accountant. So I mean, she would tell you there's no way we're close to in the red here or in the black. We're in the red.
Right.
I'm not the accountant, but yeah. So don't breed birds for money. Don't do that. It costs more to breed birds than you'll make selling them. I breed birds because I enjoy it and because I want to grow the hobby.
Right.
So the more people that have birds, the more fun it is for me. That's why I'm doing it.
And I have a conservation piece of that as well. You know, we've got
Yeah,
between the two of us, we've got some species of birds that are harder to find in the United States, and with importation, you know, pretty much coming to a halt for from several countries. You know, we're not going to get those birds here anymore, so it is important to create a healthy captive population. You
healthy
know,
being
for
the key word there, and we've
right,
talked about that in past podcasts. But like we've said, this whole video, like it's all about being responsible, knowing what you're
yeah,
doing it with a
yeah,
purpose.
for sure,
Um, so a couple other options. So I'm a member of several close to me. We have a local bird club. We have the South Alabama Cage Bird Society. I'm a member of that. I also belong to several Facebook groups. I try to keep, and I'm sure there are for other regions because I have them in the states near me. So like I live in Alabama, but I'm very close to Mississippi and Louisiana and Florida and Georgia, kind of because of the way Mobile is shaped. Uh, so I have like a Facebook group. There's like a Mississippi birds Facebook group. So I'm in that because I can be in Mississippi in 20 minutes. I'm in a Florida Facebook group because I'm pretty close to Florida. I do ship birds, so I guess plug myself here. If you're looking for some of the more rare species or certain birds, or you just want birds from me, I'll ship. I do not recommend shipping. I've been keeping birds for 20 years. I started shipping like 3 years ago. It is much harder to do than I probably make it look. Definitely not something you want to do with a beginner. Uh,
yeah,
at the beginner level, you'll end up with birds stuck in the postal system and dead birds. Don't do that. So find somebody
yeah.
local, make friends. I live in a pretty small city and there's people around me that keep birds. I'm sure there are people around you, the listener, that keep birds that you can trade with, you could sell to. There's always somebody that's looking for birds.
Yeah, and I think you'd be surprised by how many people actually keep birds or are interested in keeping birds, right? Even without the shipping piece. And you know, to that aspect, Jay, I don't ship birds. I haven't ever shipped birds. In fact, you're going to be the first one to receive shipped birds from me. So fingers crossed, I do it all right, and your birds
I'll
arrive
coach you.
alive. You know, but
Yeah.
um, you know, and that's something that I have had quite a few people reach out to me, especially in these last 2 to 3 years. Of if I do shift, you know, they would love the birds. But you know, it comes with an added risk. It does stress the birds out, but there's also some importance to it, right? We want healthy bloodlines, and sometimes to get those, you got to ship across state lines, you know, or drive across state lines, whatever you're willing to do to get those different breeding lines. But yeah, I would definitely recommend, just like what you said, Jay. I would keep that as a last ditch effort and do your homework before you ship any birds. You know, do your research, talk to breeders that have shipped birds before, ask them what's worked well, what hasn't worked well, you know, different types of shipping boxes, how to prep them, things like that. So super important that way to, you know, make sure that you're handling them appropriately and professionally. So
Right. And again, you start to cross state lines, you start to ship certain species and stuff, and you can get yourself into some legal trouble. So be
yeah,
careful there too.
yep.
The next thing I'll say is don't use Craigslist. Don't buy birds off Craigslist. Don't sell birds on Craigslist. Don't get
Yeah.
murdered in a parking lot. So here's my favorite Craigslist bird story. So back in it's been like 2006, 7 time frame. I decided I wanted some button quail. And so I searched on Craigslist for quail, small quail, I think is probably what I put. And I lived in Atlanta at the time. I still lived in, I was in high school. I lived in my mom's house. And a guy on the south side of Atlanta, which is not a good neighborhood, messages me, "Oh, I got some small quail. Yeah, they're tiny." It's like, okay, how much you want for them? $5 a piece. Here I am thinking, I'm getting the deal of the century. So I convinced one of my younger brothers to come with me, and we drive down by the airport in Atlanta, and I stick out like a sore thumb, and we're locking the doors. I'm afraid I'm going to get my brother killed on a bird adventure, which is not the first or the last time I've been worried about that. But I pull up to this guy's house, and he's got big quail pens. Everything looks good, and then he shows me the birds, and they're huge. They're like miniature chickens. And I ask him, "Oh, what are these birds for?" He goes, "Oh, they're eating quail." And so he's raising them to sell like to his neighbors for like quail meals, like they're like poultry. But me being I think I'd had birds for less than a year, like really finches and all that. And I said, "Oh, well, I'm all the way down here. How bad can it be?" So I buy these two big quail. I mean, they're huge. They probably weighed a pound each, and pay the guy $10, and we're driving back and got these. I think my brother's holding them in a box, like trying to hold the lid shut. They're bopping on the lid. We get back to my house, and I put them in the bottom of my aviary. Well, 2 or 3 days go by, I realize they're both male. Here's how I found out they were male. Sun came up the next morning, and they started
Super
crowing like
loud.
roosters. My sister, who lives underneath me through our shared air vent, she's screaming at me because the birds are waking her up. And then the birds are starting to fight because it's two male quail. So I had to build like this fence in my flight. It was a don't buy birds on Craigslist. It doesn't go good. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've had a few experiences like that, and I will say, I guess I can't say I don't ship birds because I do sell button quail eggs on eBay. So if you guys are interested in button quail eggs, I'm gonna put a little um, note in there
Caveat
for
in
you
there.
guys, caveat in there. You guys go check it out on eBay, but it is responsible, very well packaged, at very good rates. So check that out if you guys are
Right.
interested. But and here in Utah, we have a local. It's like a Craigslist, but it's local. It's just within the state, and then we've got a couple surrounding
Like
states
a
that
farm
this.
bulletin kind of a thing.
Yeah, yeah, they call it KSL ads, but they do have a specific birds page, and that one's really good. There's
Yeah.
a lot of you mentioned the Facebook groups. There's tons of face groups out there that are great groups. They're well informed and expert breeders on those and species specific, right? And then there's a few different like finch forums out there that you can log into that are some are specific to the United States, others are worldwide, and you get a lot of expertise on there and get to know different breeders. As I've continued to breed birds, that net of breeder knowledge and recognition has just grown, and there's a lot more bird breeders in Utah than I thought there were. And it's been really nice to make those local connections. Now I've got a lot of connections in the surrounding states and things like that, and breeders lined up already waiting for birds before I've even hatched them. And so that's great too, right? So as time goes on, use those different avenues of Facebook, the Finch forums, things like that. Ask your local pet
Yeah.
stores if they know of other breeders that they're getting birds from, so you can grow that catch net of resources and people available. So if you do want to breed, you've got a good group of resources or individuals that may potentially be interested in those birds that you could sell them to, and kind of have that thought of ahead of time, and the birds really pre-sold really is the best option. Or if again, if you're keeping them, have those extra cages available and space and resources to make sure you're giving them a healthy lifestyle as well, and you're not just cramming them all back into that same cage with the parents, because it
Yeah.
usually just doesn't end well.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be a big problem. So yeah, I think that covers it. What to do with baby birds. Again, if you have questions, shoot Chris a DM, shoot me a DM, comment below. We'll try to help you.
Yeah.
Where can you shoot me a DM? So Instagram, Facebook, Threads, YouTube. Can't DM on YouTube, but you can shoot a comment. Um, I'm the Javiary on all of those. It's either the underscore Javiary or just the Javiary, and we'll link it all below for you.
Yeah, and same with me. I'm the bird nerd. So YouTube and Instagram are my two main platforms that I post information and videos on. So I Bird Nerd for YouTube. Instagram is Bird Nerd 4. I do have a website, littlebirdnerd.com. If you guys want to go on look at bird products or bird merchandise, that
I
kind of
forget you have that
merchandise
website.
we're
Yeah.
wearing. Yeah. I try to update it. Again, I'm a working dad and father, and so this is a hobby. This isn't a business, so it's not up to date as good as I'd like it. I'll admit it right now, but we've got some pretty cool bird nerd merch, things like that. We're working on our Bird Brains podcast logos and some merch there for you guys to check out and to get as well. So trying to expand it and give you guys some pretty cool resources and some cool bird nerd and Javiary merch that we can start wearing. So
Yeah,
be
and
good.
I'll say, again, we're not making any money, so please,
No,
please buy
no,
stuff.
no. We need you to buy it so we can buy seed for our birds. That's
Yeah,
usually about so we can make ends meet. Because the hobby and I always say the addiction is real. We love the birds and we got to keep our families and wives happy. So just anything you guys add to that comes back and helps us out big time.
yeah.
So
Oh man. All right. Well, that's what to do with baby birds. Thanks, guys, and we'll catch you in the next one.
yeah, we'll see you guys.